Today we're making Bolo Prestígio, one of Brazil's most beloved chocolate cakes, famous for its rich, creamy coconut filling baked right into the center. If you've never had it before, imagine a soft, moist chocolate cake with a layer of chewy sweet coconut running through the middle, all finished off with a glossy chocolate ganache on top. It's a dessert you'll find at birthday parties, bakeries, and family gatherings all across Brazil, and once you make it at home, you'll understand exactly why it's such a favorite. Let's start with the coconut filling, since it needs time to cool before we use it. Pour one 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk into a saucepan. Add 1 2/3 cups of heavy cream. Heavy cream gives the richest texture, but if you only have regular whipping cream on hand, that works too. It just might need a little extra time on the stove to thicken properly, so be patient with it. Next, add in 1 1/4 cups of unsweetened shredded coconut. Make sure it's unsweetened, since we're already working with a good amount of sugar from the condensed milk, and we don't want the filling to end up cloying. Finally, add 1 1/2 tablespoons of butter. Give everything a good stir until it's fully combined. Here's what makes this cake so special, and honestly, my favorite part of the whole process. The coconut filling goes into the cake before baking, not after. There's no slicing the cake in half, no spreading filling between layers, no stacking and hoping it doesn't slide apart. Everything bakes together as one, so you get that beautiful surprise layer in the center, without any of the usual fuss. Place the saucepan on the stove and turn the heat down to low. We want to cook this gently, stirring constantly so nothing catches or sticks to the bottom of the pan. Once the mixture begins to bubble, keep cooking it for about 5 more minutes, stirring the whole time. When it's ready, pull the saucepan off the heat and transfer the filling into a wide, shallow dish. Spreading it out like this helps it cool faster than if you left it in the pot. We want the filling to come all the way down to room temperature before we use it, so resist the urge to speed things up in the fridge. Cold filling can seize up and become difficult to spread, and we want it soft enough to layer smoothly into the batter later. While the filling cools, let's move on to the batter. Crack 3 eggs into a clean mixing bowl. If you can, let your eggs sit out and come to room temperature beforehand, since they'll blend more evenly into the batter. Add 3/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of sugar. There's no need to pull out a stand mixer for this step. A whisk and a bit of elbow grease is all it takes. Whisk until the eggs and sugar come together smoothly and turn a shade lighter in color. Now add 1/2 cup of neutral oil. Something like vegetable or canola oil works perfectly. Then pour in 1 cup of milk. Just like the eggs, it helps if the milk isn't ice cold straight from the fridge. Mix everything together again until it's fully combined. The oil here is doing a lot of quiet work. It's what keeps this chocolate cake soft and moist even days later, even straight out of the fridge, which is one of the reasons this cake holds up so well. Let's prep the dry ingredients next. In a separate bowl, measure out 2 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour. If you happen to have cake flour on hand, that works beautifully too, and will give you an even more tender crumb. Add 1/2 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder and 1 tablespoon of baking powder. Sift everything together. This breaks up any lumps hiding in the cocoa powder and makes sure the baking powder distributes evenly throughout the flour, which matters a lot for getting an even rise. Give the dry mixture one more quick stir, just to be sure everything is uniform. One quick note here. Double check that you're using unsweetened cocoa powder, not a sweetened hot chocolate mix. Using the wrong one will throw off both the sweetness balance and the texture of the finished cake. Add about half of the dry ingredients into the wet mixture. Whisk gently until most of the flour has disappeared into the batter, then add the remaining dry ingredients. Doing this in 2 portions rather than all at once makes everything much easier to fold together. And it helps prevent those annoying dry pockets or flour lumps hiding in the finished batter. It also means we don't have to overmix, which is key, since overmixing activates the gluten in the flour and can leave you with a denser, tougher cake instead of the soft, tender crumb we're after. And while we finish mixing this together, I just want to take a second to say thank you for spending a little time in the kitchen with me today. If you're enjoying following along, hitting like and subscribing genuinely helps me keep making videos like this one, so I appreciate every bit of that support. Now let's get this into the pan. Take your baking pan and line it with parchment paper, which will make removing the cake so much easier once it's baked and cooled. Pour in 1/2 of the chocolate batter first, then gently spread it out into an even layer using a spatula. Make sure the batter reaches all the way into the corners of the pan and fully covers the bottom. It doesn't need to be perfectly smooth or flawless, but you do want the layer to be fairly even so the cake bakes uniformly. Now bring back that coconut filling, which by now should have cooled all the way down to room temperature. Spoon it evenly over the first layer of batter. Try not to press down on it or stir it into the chocolate layer beneath it. We want this filling to stay as its own distinct, creamy layer sitting right in the center of the cake. I get a little too excited talking about this part every time, but I really can't help it. The fact that this filling bakes directly into the cake, with zero slicing, zero assembly, and zero risk of it sliding out from between layers, saves so much time and hassle compared to a traditional layered cake. Next, pour the remaining chocolate batter over the top of the coconut filling, and gently spread it across the surface. Take your time here and be gentle, guiding the batter all the way out to the corners of the pan without disturbing that coconut layer sitting underneath. A little patience in this step goes a long way toward keeping that filling centered once the cake is baked and sliced. Slide the cake into the oven and bake it on the middle rack for about 35 to 40 minutes. Every oven runs a little differently, so keep an eye on it toward the end. And if you want to check for doneness, a toothpick inserted into the chocolate portion of the cake, avoiding the coconut center, should come out clean or with just a few moist crumbs. Once it's done, pull it out and let the cake cool completely down to room temperature before we move on to the ganache. This patience pays off, since a warm cake will melt the ganache right through instead of letting it set into that glossy finish. While the cake cools, let's prepare the chocolate ganache. Finely chop about 5 ounces of chocolate. Semi-sweet or dark chocolate works especially well here, since its slight bitterness helps balance out the sweetness of that coconut filling underneath. Milk chocolate will still work fine if that's what you prefer. Just know the finished cake will lean noticeably sweeter overall. Try to cut the chocolate into small, even pieces as you chop. The smaller and more uniform the pieces, the faster and more evenly they'll melt once the hot cream hits them. Transfer the chopped chocolate into a clean bowl and set it aside for a moment. Now heat 2/3 of a cup of heavy cream. Pour it into a saucepan, ideally one with a heavy bottom so the heat distributes evenly and nothing scorches. Place it on the stove and turn the heat to medium. Heat the cream just until you start to see steam rising and small bubbles forming around the edges of the pan. Then pull it off the heat right away. Pour the hot cream over the chopped chocolate. The cream needs to be hot enough to fully melt the chocolate, but you don't want it at a rolling boil. If the cream isn't hot enough, you might end up with stubborn, unmelted pieces of chocolate. If it's overheated, the ganache can turn oily or separate on you. Let it sit for a minute, then start stirring from the center outward, mixing until the ganache turns completely smooth and glossy. For the final touch, stir in 1 tablespoon of butter. This gives the ganache a bit more shine and helps it stay soft and easy to slice through once it's set on the cake. If you'd like to lean further into the coconut flavor, you can swap in a small amount of coconut oil instead, which pairs especially well with the filling inside the cake. Let the ganache cool for a little while before using it, just until it thickens slightly but is still pourable. Take the cooled cake, leaving it right in the baking pan, and pour the warm ganache evenly over the top. Temperature really matters in this step. The cake needs to be fully cool, and the ganache should be warm rather than hot. If either of those is off, the glaze can turn too thin and soak straight into the cake instead of sitting on top, or it won't set into that smooth, glossy finish we're after. Gently spread the ganache across the surface of the cake with an offset spatula or the back of a spoon. Now for the best part, slicing into it. Use a sharp knife and press down gently as you cut, so you don't compress the soft cake or accidentally push that coconut filling out of place. For the cleanest slices, wipe your blade between cuts so each piece comes out neat. If you'd like, top the finished cake with a little extra unsweetened shredded coconut and some finely chopped chocolate. These toppings are completely optional, but they do more than just look nice. They also give a little extra texture and hint at what's waiting inside each slice. If you've got the patience for it, let the cake sit at room temperature for about 30 minutes so the ganache has time to fully set before serving. But if you really can't wait that long, and honestly, I never can, go ahead and grab yourself a slice right away. Just look at how moist this chocolate cake turns out, with that thick, creamy coconut layer running right through the center, all without any cutting or stacking of separate cake layers. After tasting it, it's easy to see exactly why this cake is so beloved across Brazil. It's rich, it's a little indulgent, and it's absolutely worth making at home. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this one, give the video a like, and I'll see you in the next one.